If you've seen the ink pad organizers behind my desk already, you probably already know that I am a huge fan of colorful ink. And that is why I am so excited to be able to share with you a new release of ink pads today. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel, and in today's video, I'll be sharing the brand new Simon Hurley for Reinker Stellar ink pads. Now these ink pads come in some of your favorite Simon Hurley colors, and they are the exact same formulation of ink. So you may be wondering, what's new about them? I will tell you. They are the same formulation that you love about Simon Hurley's ink that's easy to blend, beautifully stamps, and it's on a foam ink pad instead of a felt pad. This makes me incredibly happy. They are so fun to work with and so easy to use. And you can use your old reinkers on these new pads. So let's jump right in and check out these ink pads, the colors, how you can work with them, and the difference between them and the original felt ink pads. I was so excited about the ink pads that I forgot to tell you that there are new ink blending brushes from Simon Hurley for Reinker as well, and we'll talk a little bit about them because they are very cool. So here are the new Stellar ink pads. They come in a really nice rainbow of colors. You'll recognize the colors. I have Prom Queen up there. You probably know that one. Here are the Stellar ink refill bottles. But as I mentioned, if you already own ink refills for the previous Simon Hurley dye inks, which I'm showing you here, you can use them on the new Stellar pads. So this is the original felt pad. You can see I can press down on it. It doesn't indent, and it brings up a small amount of ink on my finger. But with the foam pad, when you press on it, be careful when you're using the foam pads. You don't want to nick them or tear them in any way. They are a little more gentle than the foam pads, but look at all the ink that comes off on my finger. It is so much easier to get ink off of a foam pad than a felt pad. So as far as the blending brushes, they have this great long handle that you can use in a number of ways. You can kind of grab it with a fist and do some ink blending that way. You can use it, hold it like a pencil. It's got a nice smooth handle that is long enough for hands to completely grip it, depending on how you prefer to hold it. But the best part is that the bristles are super soft and tightly packed. Now let's use these ink pads to create some gorgeous colorful backgrounds. I want to start by showing you again how much easier it is to pick up ink off of the new foam pads. So I have one of the original dye ink pads from Simon Hurley for Reinker, and I'm grabbing some ink onto the brush and then adding it to the paper and blending it a little bit. Next, I'll take the foam pad and I'll really use a slower hand, try and soak up. You can even press down a little bit. Just don't press down too hard because ink will kind of squeeze out. That's the beauty of the foam pad, is that you can get a ton more ink with it. And that makes blending a lot easier. If you have enough ink on your brush, it makes it a lot easier to get a smooth blend. Now, that may be counterintuitive because sometimes with other blending types of tools, if you have too much on your brush or your whatever the tool is, you'll notice harsh lines. But not with this ink and not with this brush. These inks are fabulous, and they've always been fabulous for blending, but they're so much easier to blend now. Between the foam pad and this brush, I am getting such a nice smooth blend on just regular cardstock that I normally use, my Hammermill cardstock. So it's just absolutely amazing what a difference that the foam pad makes versus the felt pad. Now, some people love their felt pads because guess what? They last like a millennial, right? So they are very strong. You can't really ruin them. You can't really use up the ink that quickly because it just doesn't come off the pad that quickly. But these foam pads make blending a lot easier if that's what you're trying to do. I did spritz some water on the ink because don't forget, Simon Hurley inks are reactive with water. And now I'm adding a spritz of solar spray right on top to add some shine and a little hint of color as well. So I just can't say enough about these ink pads. I think they are absolutely amazing. The other thing that you can do with them that is much harder to do with a felt pad is a direct to paper swipe. So what you can see I'm doing here is directly swiping the ink pad onto the cardstock. Now I just rotated the ink pad because even a couple of swipes is using up so much ink from that portion of the pad that it is showing lines. So just rotate your ink pad and you'll have no problems creating that matte background. Now for the ink on my glass mat, I spritz some water down and I'll just place my cardstock down into it. That's the ink smooshing technique, right? So you can do so many things with this ink. It just makes me so incredibly happy, and these are so much fun to play with. And the colors are bright and happy as well, and there's just a nice rainbow of them. Of course, we all know that you can use inks over stencils. So let's try that out with these new ink pads. I adore this mint color. It is so pretty. Check out how nice that came out. I just missed a little portion of the bottom there, the way that I had the stencil set. And then I shifted the stencil and I'll use this light blue ink, and it just creates such a pretty effect. And it was so easy to do. So easy to get that great effect of the ink over the stencil. Here's that clear skies again that I used in the second stenciling there, and I'll do another direct to paper swipe. I love to do this because then you don't need necessarily to have a colorful cardstock that exactly matches your inking or your stenciling. You can create that matte just by swiping a little bit around the edges. And of course, any excess is always used up. So I have this time, I'm going to do a little tapping with a large brush and create some splatters, which is another great thing you can do with this ink. Again, because it is water reactive, you can add that water and pick it up and either watercolor with it or spritz like I'm doing here with the brush, and then just place your stenciled panel down on the mat that you created and you have a really beautiful background. Another way to use these inks is with layered stencils. Now these inks do blend together beautifully, but if you have a layered stencil like this one from Simon Hurley, and I'll link it in the description below, it will show a portion of the flower that overlaps, will be a blended color, but then you'll also see the portion that doesn't overlap as its own unique color as well. So it really makes it fun to choose some colors that will work really well together. So I have the clear skies and then the darker blue, I think it's called Midnight Snack, and then a purple. And look at that. It is just such a beautiful way to work with inks, is to do those layered stencils like that. Again, a direct to paper background, and then adding water to the glass mat and picking that up with the brush this time and doing the little tap to create the spritz so that you can see I'm using up as much of the ink as possible because I absolutely love it. I don't want to waste a teeny tiny little bit. So these different techniques allow you to use the ink in different ways, and the foam pads make it so much easier to do all of these techniques, from ink blending to spritzing, but you can also stamp with these inks. So this time I have the ink pad down. Normally I flip the ink pad over, but I want you to see what I am doing here. So with the felt pad, I am really having to get in there and kind of press down and swipe in order to get the entire stamp covered. With a foam pad, you want to lightly tap. You don't want to squeeze too much, and you'll see that the entire stamp will be covered with that light tap. And look at how much more ink comes out with the Stellar ink pad versus the original felt pad. So here I am just stamping a bunch of the other colors so you can see them out. Now again, when you're doing anything direct to paper or using the stamp, you want to have a nice light touch, consistent so that you get none of those white spots like I just got, but light enough that you're not squeezing out ink from the pad too much so that it makes a mess. You don't want to have your ink squeezing all over the place. Okay, for this background, I am using the leftover of the Midnight Snack, and then I'll press that down into the paper. I love the way this looks, so I decided to add a little bit more water and really pick up even more of that ink. Like, check that out. I really used most of that ink there. So I'll use a little bit of Clear Skies now. This time I'm not swiping to the paper. I'm just adding it to the glass mat and then spritzing it with the water and picking it up. And you get this gorgeous, from the smooshing of these inks, a gorgeous watercolor or almost like alcohol ink background. So here's how that one turns out. Another technique that you can do, again, is not just watercoloring, but you can use the actual refills. A little tiny dot will do just fine. Add a little bit of water and then a brush and pick it up and just do some fun, fast watercoloring on the background to make a multicolor background. I'd already ink smushed that orange on there, that's Guppy, but I decided I wanted a little bit more color, so I'm adding Prom Queen. And then with the rest of that ink on the glass mat, I pick it up with the brush and then do that splatter effect by tapping the brush and letting that ink just fly onto the cardstock. Here I'm going to heat set this so that it dries, and then I can always add more color or more water if I want to. But once it's heat set, it's going to stay really nice like that. So here are all the different backgrounds. Now remember all the techniques we did. We did stamping, we did blending, we did over stencils, we did layered stencils, we did watercolor, we did ink smooshing. But now it's time to turn these guys into cards. So for this first card, I'll take the Black Widow Stellar ink and ink up a large stamp and a small sentiment. I have them in my mini Misty so that I can double stamp them if I need to. Look at how beautifully that black ink stamps on top of that colorful background. I am so impressed with this. This is something that I often struggle with depending on which ink pad I pull or decide to use. It's very hard to get ink to show up on other ink. Not with this Stellar ink pad. It is absolutely gorgeous. So I decided to try color as well as the black. So I have a color of the purple on that little sea star there, and then I have black for the sentiment. And I did double stamp or triple stamp the sentiment just to make sure it stood out on that dark blue background. But check that out. The purple looks amazing on that blue watercolor smush background. Here I'll do it again, this time on the stenciled background. You can see I have the happy birthday today is all about you. And then I have a boat and a small little wave underneath. So once you have these backgrounds done, these cards are really easy to pull together. Check out how the Stellar Black Widow ink stamped on white cardstock with a sentiment. It is a gorgeous sentiment ink. Absolutely phenomenal. I am so happy with these pads. I can't even tell you. I hope you can tell how excited I am about them. And then I just added some gems to the stenciled background so that they would have a little extra shine. And here are all the cards that I was able to create in literally no time at all. I love working with these pads. I hope you could tell exactly how excited I was to work with these new ink pads and to be able to use them and craft with them. They are just a dream. But I'd love to hear if you have a preference between the original felt ink pads and the new foam pads. Let me know in the comments below. I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. Favorite, oh, what is this? Okay, that's weird. It was like flipping out. There's like a little, yeah, okay, doesn't matter. But I gotta do that again.